I just vastly have to get this out. For a while, I've been reading tech news, and I keep seeing sites saying that AMD is gonna go down. AMD is stock is plummeting. It's doomed. I believe that it's not gonna go anywhere. AMD is not going anywhere, despite what other news tech sites say. They just want to get people's attention mostly, and I think it's not wise to give AMD the benefit of the doubt that they're gonna most likely redeem themselves by next year with their new Zen core architecture for their CPUs. That it's gonna be, in my opinion, pretty competitive against Intel. We'll see till then. And their HBM that they've been involved in, which has been a huge success. Now Samsung's already ramping up their own HBM tech. So AMD is not going to go anywhere. It's not doomed, despite what everybody says. Even tech sites that say their stock keeps plummeting, this and that. It doesn't matter if their stock falls a little further below average. AMD is still going to survive, and here's why. First off, they have their foothold in the console market. At the very beginning, before the PlayStation 4 came out, before the Xbox One came out, a lot of analysts have been saying that consoles are going to fail. There's not a good, area to be involved in, and so, and here's why it's going to fail, this and that. I kept seeing all these texts, and I vastly disagree with all those opinions. I already knew that the console, the PlayStation 4, is going to succeed vastly. I just felt it. Usually my predictions come out correct, and I felt strongly that the PlayStation 4 is going to sell a lot of consoles. The Xbox One's going to, trail behind. It's going to do pretty good, because consoles are still here to stay, especially during the huge growth of hardcore gamers out there. And I should know, because I used to be a hardcore gamer in the past, and I always followed the consoles. I followed the PlayStation 1, Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, and PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. I never had an Xbox, the original Xbox. But anyways, what got me interested in the console was that it was cheaper than PCs back then. Back then PCs were very expensive, but now you can make your own PC pretty cheap nowadays. But it just doesn't have the convenience, as more people are more involved to like the communities, like say like Xbox Live or whatever for Xbox 360, the exclusives on the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox One. Everybody's carrying on their Xbox Live, chat and everything. And you can't do that on PC, because that's completely different. A lot of people have their friends over on the consoles, and they refuse to go PC. I mostly game on PC nowadays, but not as much. I'm not a hardcore gamer anymore. But the point is that besides that, AMD is gonna do pretty good, because of many reasons. Consoles is one area, but of course it's not gonna be their major area. And one of the major areas is their new GPU architecture. So far, one game that hasn't been released yet, though, AMD has been way ahead in DirectX 12 than NVIDIA. And NVIDIA is already saying, well, it's too early to tell, which is correct. It's too early. It's only been one game that they've been losing against AMD. But I already suspected that AMD, since they're more open, unlike NVIDIA, which has a lot of proprietary CUDA cores and such, they're specifically designed to certain tasks, kind of like mostly DirectX 11 and such, while AMD is more open sourced, more streamlined, to be more adaptable to almost any kind of programming. Like AMD has always been real good at OpenCL, while even Titan X would do terrible against a lower end GPU. So I suspected that it was going to do very good in DirectX 12. Not only that, it also DirectX 12 has similarities to the coding of Mantle, which AMD pretty much got rid of. But in that sense, since the rise of DirectX 12, AMD is going to do very well. I believe that NVIDIA will start catching up, but they're going to only have a little bit of more performance increase, but it's going to be limited, while AMD is still going to be the top dog in DirectX 12. That's what I predict currently. Where NVIDIA will shine is in Pascal. I'm very sure that Pascal would be where NVIDIA is going to shine in DirectX 12. The current tech right now is too proprietary, too closed. It's not versatile with new coding like DirectX 12 and OpenCL and such. Oh, and another part is NVIDIA, just like Apple, knows how to advertise. They just really well in advertising. I remember back in 2011 when I was thinking about getting a new GPU. I already knew about Radeon graphics, but NVIDIA was heavily promoted everywhere. A lot of YouTubers, big YouTubers, were saying that NVIDIA is just the way to go. NVIDIA this, NVIDIA that. They're really good at promoting that stuff, and I believe a big part of it is that NVIDIA has good relationships between some big YouTubers, where they give them free graphics cards or whatever to test out, or maybe just to keep or whatever. So you could get this is just my opinion, so you could give them a good ratings and promote it as much as possible on YouTube. And you know, most people that just don't know nothing about that kind of stuff, and you're just barely getting into the GPU market and such, just to game, they most likely will just see that, you know, NVIDIA this, NVIDIA that, NVIDIA this, NVIDIA that, everywhere all over the place. They're just gonna go with NVIDIA, with completely, ignoring AMD Radeon graphics cards, which sometimes usually are cheaper priced than NVIDIA. If I would have known that back then, that I paid $150 something for a brand new 550 Ti on eBay, if that there was a better equivalent on AMD's side that I could have bought, I would have felt a lot more ripped off by the people promoting the 550 Ti that is so great. I watched videos like playing Crysis or whatever at 720p at high settings and whatnot. And if I would have known back then that AMD had a better equivalent, I would have gone with that instead. But you know, just like a new PC gamer that at the time I got, you know, fooled into buying a pretty good priced, I guess, GPU at the time for a low budget, but it wasn't the type of card, you know, for the same amount of money I could have got a Radeon card that was a little bit faster than that 550 Ti, but I didn't know that. And I believe a lot of people buy into that hype. Again, NVIDIA is really good at promoting on YouTube. They're really good promoting on many other tech sites. And I believe that's one reason why AMD has been doing kind of bad the past few years. But what a lot of people forget is that AMD has been selling, or was selling, many cards back a few years ago. I remember when I wanted to get a better graphics card from NVIDIA at the time. I was thinking of getting a 570 if I could, or 560 Ti if I could. The cards just were too expensive. Even on eBay, they were just too expensive. And once I waited when just to see the prices would drop on the 580 and this and that. the prices were always at very high prices, even on eBay. People were selling them for a lot of money. And then all of a sudden, the boom of Bitcoin mining started happening. And AMD cards on the other side, I was thinking of getting a 7950 or something. At least the prices started shooting up real high, which was practically making people choose NVIDIA, because the prices for AMD, even for used GPUs, were going very high, even higher than the market price, even on eBay and such. So the prices on NVIDIA just stayed, even for the older graphics cards, the 500 series, when the 600 series were out, the prices were still pretty high. And that held me back from buying a new GPU, because I really needed a GPU to handle 1080p at least, with mods and everything. I don't really care about 60 frames per second. I didn't care about none of that stuff. All I cared about was being able to play games at decent frame rate, at least above 30 frames per second, 1080p with mods and such. And later on, I found out that I can get, well, I got lucky. I got lucky that on eBay, after the craze of Bitcoin mining died off with AMD GPUs, I was able to buy a pretty good priced R9 290X Sapphire for about $230 at the time. This was earlier this year. And it was, I thought it was a pretty good deal. It's a really good deal. It plays all games at 1080p. It has 4 gigs of RAM, which is plenty of RAM that I actually really did need, since I mod, and low budget gaming was not what I was looking for. And what a lot of people just don't understand, especially people that are just barely getting into this, is that the new tech, when in reality people could just buy old GPUs from, let's say, NVIDIA or AMD that cost less, even used ones, they would work just perfect with no problems at all. It could last you for another 1 or 2 years or 3 years, more than enough time for you to decide to choose to buy a new GPU. I mean, not everybody's gonna stay with a GPU for like 10 years. I mean, that's ridiculous. So that's one part, I believe, out of many parts that I finally found out that the Bitcoin mining thing was really big, and it pretty much put the graphics cards out of my reach at a certain price range. And Intel's price, Nvidia's price just stayed at where it's at, because there was no competition. I mean, AMD was running out of graphics cards because the bit mining craze. And now, since the bit miners moved away from GPUs, the price, everything starts going down. A lot of people forget about this. And also, NVIDIA they don't mostly make their money out of gaming. Yes, they do make a lot of money out of gaming, but not most of it. Most of their money on NVIDIA graphics cards is on the server-based market for supercomputers and other server-based companies. So that's where most of their money is coming from. That's where a lot of people they just think that NVIDIA is just a gaming market, when in reality they sell all kinds of devices. Especially where they make their money, of course, is the server market, as I said before.